Good afternoon. First, I want to congratulate all the Democratic candidates who won last night. We're now one step closer to taking back the majority. And Democrats are going to win big in November because we're laser focused on issues that the American public cares about. From bringing down the high cost of living to improving access to quality, affordable health care and protecting our fundamental freedoms, Americans know who has their interests at heart, and they know this Republican majority does not. For over a year, Donald Trump and House Republicans have consistently disregarded the needs of hardworking families. In the Trump economy, families are struggling to afford groceries, gas, and health care. But rather than using their powers to help people, what they've decided to do is just this week offer $70 billion, a blank check for ICE, while gutting health care and food assistance programs and refusing to end costly conflict with Iran. And instead of lowering costs for Americans, Trump single-handedly is dividing his own party through his retribution campaign. He's nominating unqualified yes man to be his intelligence community chief, and he's making America's 250th birthday entirely about himself. The American people are paying attention, and they know what is happening, and they know this is not what they voted for. They voted to lower costs, and what they got was higher costs and chaos. People are working harder just to stay afloat while they watch Trump and his inner circle continue to enrich himself through backroom deals and stock trading and no-bid government contracts. Americans are ready to put an end to the Trump and Republican corruption, and Democrats are stepping in. Democrats believe Americans' hardworking tax dollars should go to making people's lives better, not just to enrich Trump and his family. We'll keep fighting to ensure that that happens. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I want to thank the White House for repeatedly putting the National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, on TV, because Kevin Hassett is really helping Democrats with our messaging. This is what Director Hassett recently said on national TV. Quote, "People are spending more on gas, but they're also spending more on everything else, not just groceries, but restaurants and so on." Kevin Hassett, you're exactly right. People are spending more because guess what? Inflation is up. Inflation is higher now than it was when Trump took office last year. Grocery prices are up, gas prices are up, consumer products are up. And what is Trump focused on? Putting his face on a $250 bill, putting his face on U.S. passports, and putting his name on airports. We ask Republicans and the Trump administration to do what the American people want, which is to lower costs. Now, I want to talk about another issue, which is the United States Supreme Court. There's this case in Alabama where the legislature has proposed a map that a panel of 3 federal appellate judges who are conservative put an injunction on. 2 of these federal appellate judges were appointed by Trump himself. One was initially appointed by Ronald Reagan. And they said that this map was based on intentional racial discrimination. The Supreme Court recently lifted an injunction on that map and is allowing this racist map to go into force in Alabama for this year's election. That is unconscionable, and it shows that the current Supreme Court is out of control, out of touch with the American people, and acting in a purely partisan manner. This is the most corrupt Supreme Court we've seen in our history, and reform is going to come next year.
Questions? Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just came over from the Senate where they're taking a procedural vote to move forward on the reconciliation bill over there. They dropped the ballroom funding, and Todd Blanche yesterday said that they won't move forward with the so-called weaponization fund. Those 2 issues have been very central to some of your criticisms about the bill outside of the underlying $70 billion for ICE and CBP. I'm wondering if the bill comes over to the House, which there's a long way to go, but if the bill comes over to the House and the ballroom funding isn't in the bill and the kind of weaponization fund is not a part of the conversation either. What's your message to the American people about the opposition that House Democrats still have with the second reconciliation bill that Republicans are trying to put forward?
Our opposition has always been based about the substance. Giving a $70 billion blank check to ICE, who has a history of brutalizing and terrorizing communities, killing U.S. citizens, is not what we should be doing. Those agencies need accountability and oversight. We should not be giving them more resources without also conditioning accountability. That was the basis behind our opposition before, and it'll continue to be the basis of our opposition. Now, what Senate Republicans did was they tried to pull one over on the American people and add in some language here and some language there that were incredibly, even objectionable to Senate Republicans, which is a stretch. But that's the only reason why they're pulling back now, is they've divided Republicans on these issues, and those issues have zero support among the American people. So we're going to continue to talk about this, especially the weaponization fund, because all of the language that they have put out still leaves them quite a bit of flexibility to move forward with this. Maybe after June 11th, when the judge indicated that they couldn't do anything to. So that's the going to continue to be our objection, and I think that even some Senate Republicans still have some objections, but we'll see how the afternoon goes. Max?
We saw New York City Mayor Mamdani endorse against the chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congressman Espaillat, the other day. As a member of the Hispanic Caucus, what's your reaction to this, and do you think the mayor is making the wrong political calculation here?
Oh, look, I can't speak to the mayor's political calculus here. That's not my job. What I can speak to is the job that Adriana Espaillat does on behalf of leading the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, as well as a member here in Congress. This is someone who has continually and consistently fought ICE in New York and has been incredibly public about visitations and pushing back on the detention facilities that they have, and ensuring that communities have voices. He's a great member, a valued asset to the Democratic Caucus, and I'm confident that he's going to win. That's what we're focused on, and I can't speak to what the mayor's political calculus is. But if it's focused on effectiveness and serving your constituents, and Adriano's doing the work. Andrew?
What do you plan to vote on Rashida Tlaib's Lebanon War Powers Resolution? I guess what is Democratic leadership's position on that more broadly?
Continue to have discussions. I'm not sure that it's been called for a vote. Right now, I think that there's still some uncertainty as to when that will come up for a vote. There's been discussion about making some changes. So I think the first threshold question is, like, what are we voting on? Are we voting on what was kind of populated and the language that was out there, or are there some changes to the language? The language that she put out was based on a earlier resolution that she offered, which is another set. So once we have final text and we know when the vote is going to happen, then I'll have something to share, and I think members will be more open about their thoughts on the resolution. But we'll see what happens. Nick?
I want to ask about this reported ethics investigation into Congressman Jimmy Gomez. Have either of you had the chance to talk to your fellow Californian about it, and is this the kind of behavior that you find acceptable in the caucus?
I read the article like everybody else did, and I think he's indicated that he's going to be forthcoming with the ethics committee. We have said that ethics should have the resources that they need to do the job, and that means investigating and providing oversight to members. I genuinely believe that if there's something there for ethics to investigate, then they should have the resources to do it, and they should have the resources to do it in an effective way, and in a way that meets some time thresholds. He's been very honest, according to the statement. He's been very honest about challenges that he's going through on the personal side, and I'll leave that between him and his family to work through.
I have a question for Vice Chair Lieu.
Perfect. These are my favorite questions, and all of you should take note.
Thank you. This is as AI Task Force co-chair. Do you think that President Trump's executive order on AI goes far enough? I guess would be the first one. And then a follow-up is, how should the United States be working on AI to protect ourselves from AI threats in cybersecurity?
I do not think the executive order goes far enough. I don't think a voluntary system does very much. I think we need to have federal legislation. And unfortunately, their entire strategy of the White House and of House Republican leadership has been to suppress legislation at the federal level, suppress legislation at the state level, and let the AI industry run wild. And that has caused a massive backlash from the American public. The American people are just asking for reasonable guardrails, and that's why Democrat leader Jeffries created the AI Commission to put forth a framework for when Democrats take control next year, what we would do.
Are you concerned about how long that might take? Do you think that it might be too out of control by next year? It's moving so fast.
Well, that's why we have states that are passing laws and have been passing laws. And until Congress is able to act, you're going to have states do this in the meantime.
Are you or any of your members meeting with Mr. Altman? I know he's on the Hill this week.
I will be meeting with him later today.
Thank you.
Just wondering what kind of involvement does Democratic leadership have with this push by both heads of the women caucuses and women's conference on the Republican side to kind of form a task force to investigate how sexual harassment is reported here in the House? How involved is leadership with this?
I knew Leader Jeffries had a number of discussions with Teresa Leger Fernandez and Teresa and I think Kat Kamek are kind of leading that kind of working group. Based on what I've read, they have both been empowered by Speaker Johnson and Leader Jeffries to engage in conversations. We'll see what the products of those are. I have not had a readout of what the byproduct has been or any timetables. They would be in a better position to talk about that, but I think this is something that as a whole, the Democratic Caucus and the leadership team supports, and that type of member-led involvement to decide what thresholds and what resources are necessary to get to the oversight and accountability that the committee is charged with seems reasonable to us. Thank you so Max.
I guess one more for you saw the governor's results last night in your home state. Looks like Javier Becerra is going to advance. Are you going to endorse him for governor?
Yeah, Javier will be I voted for Javier. He'll be the Democratic nominee. I'm sure as a delegation we'll do something to continue to support his efforts. And up and down the state, our candidates and ourselves included are going to be on a ballot with him. So we're invested in his success. We wish him well. He's somebody who we all know, and when the vice chair and I came to Congress, he was in this position. And a leader here in Congress, and obviously went on to do state work as AG and Secretary of HHS. A great individual who's going to do a good job, and we'll be more public about what that looks like as a delegation. Andrew, last one.
Yeah, there's the potential for a lockout in California's 6th district with Kevin Kiley, who's now an independent, in first, and potentially a Republican in second. If that's the case, I'm wondering how the Democratic Caucus might approach that situation, especially given that that's effectively a Democratic-leaning district now.
It's not going to happen.
You're confident that
I'm confident it's not going to happen. A Democrat's going to get into the top two there. Is the only person I think under this dome who has seen this firsthand. I've got some experience being locked out of and having two Republicans advance in a Democratic seat before your all-time. But take a look at 2012, Pete Aguilar. But Pete Aguilar 1.0 as the staff calls it. And so I'm confident that Dr. Pan will get into the top two, and he'll have the support of the Democratic Caucus as soon as the ballots are counted. And I know that's frustrating for some Republicans who don't believe in vote by mail, and they don't believe in everybody having an opportunity to exercise their right to vote. It takes some of these counties a little longer than others, and a little longer than we would like. But as long as they get a free and fair opportunity and get the count right, that's the only thing that matters. And so I'm confident Dr. Pan will get in the top two.
Sorry to belabor this. You said you kind of referenced it there. Do you think it's time for California to make changes about how it counts its votes?
I think that the federal government can play a role and offer more resources to counties, obviously, to help. I think that each counties have different processes and rules, and I think the state needs to play a role in kind of consolidating some of those, timelines and thresholds. But ultimately, fundamentally, it just comes down to a volume thing. I mean, every voter gets a mail ballot, and many of the voters, my household included, voted in the last, 72 hours by mail, putting it in a drop box. And so sometimes, when the votes come all at the very end like that, it's going to take, professionals a little longer to count. But I think that, it's reasonable to have those conversations, and we'll abide by whatever the rules the voters put into statute or the state legislature deems is appropriate, working with county officials. Thank you, guys.